Hello, welcome to Toronto Bible Study. I'm your host, Mike Sampat. This is our guest, Dominic Russell from the UK.
Hello, pleased to
And
meet
we're
you.
gonna, yes, thanks, pleased to meet you too, Dominic. And we're gonna have a little chat about a few things. But Dom, first, tell us a bit about yourself, my friend.
Well, I'm a historian. I work in schools. So I go to schools and I teach Stone Age through to Vikings and Saxons. Um,
Okay.
Obviously, I'm in the UK, so it's a
Yeah,
very different experience. But I always find it broadens the mind to talk to as many people as possible, and it's
that's
nice to
right.
have a broad mind. I've had a
That's
lovely
right.
day. I've been sitting in the garden doing some gardening. Lovely Saturday, and it's lovely
Yeah.
to be here with you, Mike.
Yeah, lovely to
Is it
have
Mike
you,
or
my friend.
Michael?
Mike, yeah, most people call me Mike. That's true.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice and sunny out there.
Oh
Not
yeah.
usually the case in England.
No.
I guess you're getting lucky today.
370 days of rain every year.
Yeah, I remember. I know. I stayed there for a few months. Back in it was a long time ago. Back in 2001, I think 2001
Yeah.
too. But I love the place. I love it. I love it. In London, I was staying in London for most of the time. It was great.
Right.
So much fun, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it is. London is a very lively place to be.
Where are you about? Where are you in? How
I'm
far are
in
you from London?
Coventry, which is
Obviously. Oh, that's not. That's about halfway between London and Birmingham, right? Or
that's right. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
we're nearer to Birmingham. I can
Okay.
travel. Takes me an hour to get to Birmingham to if I go to a school in Birmingham.
Oh, okay, okay. Is
Takes
that
me.
what you teach?
I teach all over the country. I
Oh, I see.
drive.
You travel around.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, cool. That's interesting, man. So, all right. Well, maybe we can talk a little bit about the history too. But before we get
Mm.
there, let me tell me a bit about your faith journey. How did you become? You're a member of the Church of England, is that right?
I am. I'm a layman of the Church of England,
Okay.
which means I don't do anything other than turn up and listen. And I think that's a very important job to do as a
Indeed it
Christian
is.
sometimes,
Indeed it is. That's
because
right.
I'm not an expert in theology, and it's important to listen to people who know what they're talking about. So yeah, that's what I do. I shut up and pay attention. Um,
Fair enough.
uh, Christ gives us the duty of actually going to church. So that's an important duty to actually do. He has a duty of the Lord's Supper and meeting together, as well as
Right.
loving each other, obviously.
Of course. Yes.
So
That's right.
all of which are very
Meeting together
difficult
is
for me
very
to see.
important. Being together is very important, but how did you get into the Church of England? Were you raised up in that, or
No, I
what
was
happened?
raised Pentecostal. Do you
Is
know
that right? Okay.
Pentecostal? Yeah,
Sure, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So Free Church in Sandyway in Cheshire. My father took me along as a little baby and as a
Mm.
little boy. So yeah, I've been a life. I'm a lifer in the church,
Good, good.
and I think I've always been a Christian. I've never been a particularly good Christian. I think
Mm.
the joke is you practice being a Christian.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Keep practicing. Eventually, you'll
that's
figure it out.
yeah. Eventually, yeah, by the
Yeah.
grace of God.
By the grace of God. That's right. That's right. I mean, we try our best. Nobody's got it right. Nobody's got it all figured out,
I
except
think
for
it's
him.
yeah. I think I think we're pretty appalling at being Christians
Mm.
often. Um,
Yeah.
and it all does come down to the grace of God. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
I think you're right there. Yeah, very much so. The only
Yeah.
blameless person is Jesus.
That's right. That's right. He did it all, man. He's the only one. I mean, that's why all the glory goes to him, you know?
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Interestingly, the word worship is an Anglo Saxon word
Okay.
meaning to recognize worth, which is
Ah,
why we worship, because we recognize the worth of Jesus and
that's
we
right.
recognize the
That's right.
worth of God.
Ah, very interesting. Worship.
Werfgeschif is the correct word.
Okay, okay. I like that. So, do you speak old English, or are those Anglo Saxon stuff, or how many
I
of those?
speak little bits. I need to work on my ancient languages. So on and off, I've been doing biblical Greek. Don't
Is that
ask me.
right?
Don't ask me to say anything biblical Greek because it's a written language, not a spoken one.
Yeah, yeah.
Little bits of Old English, little bits of Middle English, little bits of Latin. I can sing Old MacDonald's Farm in Latin.
Nice. All right, can we hear it?
The next MacDonald habawit fundum, E-I-E-I-O. In hoc fundo habawit bovum, E-I-E-I-O. Moo moo hick, moo moo illick, hick moo illick moo ubicay moo moo. The next MacDonald habawit fundum, E-I-E-I-O.
Oh, that's awesome. Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's good.
Very
That's
silly.
awesome. Yeah, it's a silly song, but it's cool. You can learn it because everyone knows the words. So now we can
Yes,
kind of figure
exactly.
it out, right?
Yeah. And also a lot of it, like ubicay means everywhere. So yeah, moo moo ubicay.
Ah, moo moo okay. Yeah,
That's right. Ubicay, as in ubiquitous.
Right. Oh, ubiquitous. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
very good. Right.
So
Yeah, so there's a lot of funny words we get from those languages, like knife. I was thinking about the word knife the other day. It's such a strange thing, But or all those kind of short words that are the phrase make love. I believe that's the Anglo Saxon phrase, right? It's those little nice ones. I like them.
It's a nice kenning as well. Anglo Saxons love their kennings. So yeah, to make love is is a polite way of talking about the act of sex.
Right.
Oh no, we can't talk about sex. That'd be great.
They weren't like that back then, though, were they?
Yeah. They are. They are they're an incredibly conservative group of people because they are so absolutely. They go from 1 to 11 in less than a second. The famous story of the coming of the English comes because they went to Hengist and Horsa go to a wedding party. Somebody spills a drink. 10 minutes later, everyone's dead because it's just they just don't have this. You and I would have an argument about it, and they get heated, and eventually someone would say, "Look, guys, it's just a drink." They go for their sword first thing.
Yeah,
So
no,
they
that's the
have to
thing
be-
about those guys.
Yeah, they're what's the word? I've forgotten the word for where they're so hot-headed. So they have to have as many kennings and as many rituals as possible to get between the violence. Oh yeah, they're an incredibly violent society.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's why the English are so polite, because we're descended from these people.
You remember all those days? It's like to avoid those problems. Yeah.
Yeah. It's indicative, yes. And also the ability of an English person to take offence at something is tremendous.
Right.
Anything will spark an English person off.
Yeah, that's true. Well, some of them, I don't know. Some of them are pretty laid back too, I find. But
on the
you
surface,
seem pretty laid back. Sorry?
Oh, I'm very laid back. Very laid back. I try very hard, but just driving down the road, someone cuts you up. Ooh,
you lose it. That's okay. That's everybody, man. That's everybody. I mean, that's something that everyone freaks out about. Every side of the ocean. But listen, you know what I was gonna ask you? There's this channel I've been watching lately. Well, once in a while on YouTube. I mean, it hasn't been lately, but I was watching. It's so interesting. This guy, they remake weapons from that era, and they try to use it in real life situations. So this guy had a full armor plate, like a Frenchman, and then he had arrows similar to those longbows that they use. I guess this is long after Anglo Saxon times, but
this is Middle Ages.
Yeah. I mean, actually, it's probably late Middle Ages, like the Battle of, what do they call it? The Battle of when Henry V was in
Agincourt.
Agincourt, yeah, right, that one. So they have the longbows, right? And they're testing it like, oh, could the longbow really penetrate armor? You know.
Yeah.
But apparently it couldn't. But I guess there was some other factors in that battle. Like I mean, it's not just the. Well, I mean, they were testing it and it couldn't really get right through the plate, right head on. But maybe probably those guys were raining arrows on them, and so they were finding their way through the armor or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Right? But
absolutely. And also, as a reenactor, when they've done arrow storms, it's it's worrisome in your head. A
yeah,
load of arrows coming down on you. There's no way they're going to hurt you because they're blunt tips, but it makes you think.
yeah, that's right,
And
man.
the sound of the arrows, because you hear them coming before they come. They don't go faster than the speed of sound.
Right.
Unlike a bullet goes
Yeah.
faster than the speed of sound.
Right. So you don't even hear it, but these
You don't
arrows,
hear it.
you'll hear it whistling, and then you'll like, oh no, you start
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
around.
Don't look
Yeah.
up. Oh look, there's an arrow coming at me.
That's right in your face.
Ah!
Yeah, that's it. Man, those days. I mean, I can't even imagine those days, man. Like fighting in a battle like that or something like that, man. It's so crazy.
Oh yeah, and it's it must have been horrible, particularly in a civil war or a war in a small community. But the battles were very small. We seem to think of millions of soldiers. There's one battle where it was the Lord, 30 of his soldiers, and his friend Geoffrey.
That's it.
That's
Let's go. Let's go get him. Get Jeff. There he is.
Yeah.
That's the battle, eh? But what about Agincourt? That would have been a few. What? That's like maybe the French had a lot more, I guess. So.
They were royal armies, so they were armies of kings. So yeah, they would have been quite large, but not quite as large as we'd expect. Maybe a few hundred soldiers on either side.
Okay.
And in that context, if you lose, say, 10 soldiers, that's 10% of the army gone.
Yeah.
And 30% is where an army becomes inefficient. So, it could go quite quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But that one went all day, I think. Agincourt was in the mud, though. That was why they got caught in the mud. Those French,
Yeah, how horrible. That's a horrid way to die.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Especially with a helmet, where if you go face down in the mud and then the water comes up into your face and drown.
Yeah.
Drown in an inch of water. That's horrible.
That's terrible. Yeah. And some guy stepping on you. He's trying to get out of there too.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy, man. That'd be crazy. Yeah. So do you focus a lot on the battles and stuff when you teach history?
No, I'm a British Empire historian, really.
Okay.
So it's really the social and the economics which influence that period of time. Battles are interesting. Also, I tell you what, the American West, that's a very interesting area of study.
Yeah, I love it too, man. I mean, I get into the more romantic part of it. Like, I'll read about not read, or I'll watch the movies. Those Wyatt Earp.
Wyatt Earp,
the OK Corral, the showdown at the OK Corral.
Yeah.
What was it? Yeah, those kind of stories are awesome.
Yeah,
Did you ever see that movie? There was one. They tried to make it really historical. There was one with Kirk Douglas and not Kirk Douglas. Like I can't remember their names. These guys. Well, Val Kilmer was in it, right? And there was you know what I'm talking about, right? That one. Did you see that one?
I think so. Did you ever see Lonesome Dove?
No, I never saw that one, man.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Yeah, was it?
It was really, really, really got the size of the American West and how these are very little people in this huge landscape, where people just vanish, really. The homesteaders who went out and they didn't see anyone for months and months and months. That must have been wearisome. I've always wanted to see Little House on the Prairie as well. I read the version. Yeah, read the diaries, because that's tremendous what they put up with.
Well, there was some controversy about that one.
Oh, there's a lot of controversy about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about it. But you know what? Okay, so we were gonna talk conspiracy theories, right?
Yeah.
So what's your favorite conspiracy theory?
Oh, the Spear of Destiny. Have you ever heard of the Spear of Destiny?
I think I've heard of it, but I don't. Fill me in on this one. What's this one?
It's the spear which plunged into Christ's side at the crucifixion.
Okay.
Oh, relics. Have you? Do you know much about relics?
No.
I've seen John the Baptist's head and hand.
No way.
Yeah.
Where is that? Where'd you see that?
It's in Istanbul.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's on display in a museum in Istanbul.
Okay.
And next to it is Moses' staff and Aaron's staff as well.
And Aaron's rod and budded.
Yeah.
We talk about it in the Bible, right?
Yeah. So they're all on display in a museum in Istanbul. No,
I would classify those as just. I would not classify that as a conspiracy theory so much. But what's the Spear of Destiny story all about?
Spear of Destiny is the spear which goes into Christ's side at the crucifixion. The idea is anyone who holds it becomes undefeatable in battle.
Okay, sounds like a good spear to have.
Napoleon has it.
Really?
Yeah, and the downside is the moment you put it down, you become defeatable in battle.
So you have to carry it all the time.
Yeah. So you've got to carry. Yeah. The moment you lose it, you become defeatable. The Nazis were desperate to get hold of it. It's one of the relics they were desperate to get hold of.
Right.
Where is it now? I think it's in
yeah.
Austria now.
Is that right? They did find it. Did they find it, or someone else got it?
I think it was hidden from them, but I'm not sure. So that's a pretty cool one.
That is cool, yeah.
The Titanic.
The Titanic one. Okay, let's talk about that. That's actually, I don't know, that's an actually reasonable one. Like, I mean, I don't know too much about it, to be honest, but from what I understand is it was like there were some of the bankers that were opposing the sort of the U.S. Federal Reserve System and those things. They were supposed to make the trip, and some of the bankers that were supposed to make the trip, they suddenly got sick on that day or whatever, and they bailed out, right? So it's kind of like one of those stories, you know what I mean? It might have been. It just might have been. What do you know about it?
The one I was thinking of was that the liner, switched Olympia for Titanic.
Right. Yeah, that story. I think that story might be a little bit. That might be off, But it's not unheard of back then that they would do stuff like that. Those kind of huge insurance scams and. Sorry, go ahead.
The thing is, the Titanic is just would have been so recognizable. So many people. When would you switch it? How would you switch it?
I know, right?
How would you put the two together and say, "Oh, look, yeah, nobody look as we changed the name at the back."
Well, what was it? The Olympia was already running, and then the Titanic was a new one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that one, maybe, but that I don't know enough about it to really say one way or another.
What's your favorite conspiracy theory?
Well, I mean, I'm so far into it now. I've been looking at flat Earth a lot. That's pretty wild, right? That's the ultimate. That's
too wild. Yeah. It is. That is the ultimate conspiracy theory. If you believe in flat Earth, you are going against every single thing. We believe we.
Yeah. But actually, people overestimate how much it really does change our world. Like the fact is, in our daily life, or actually in anyone's life, it doesn't even matter daily life or whatever. Not even like even the people who have extraordinary lives that fly planes and climb mountains and stuff. They have never seen the curve of the Earth. No one has ever seen it. That's the thing about it. That's the thing that makes you think. Because they'll say they have. Oh, I was in a plane and I saw the curve. I looked out the window. I could see it. It's not true. You can't. You cannot see it. You can't apprehend it. It's so minuscule, the curve. Even if it was possible, right? It would be so tiny. You wouldn't be able to see it with your eye. Like, you'd have to take a picture, put it on a computer, and try to find it. Try to zoom in and find it, right? But actually, people can't even do that, because if they could, they would have done it already,
Okay.
So that's why it's not unreasonable. It's just that people think it is, So the only people who could really have seen it, who could really even claim to have seen it, are the astronauts, the so-called astronauts, right? But is it true? Is it true that they could see it? I don't even know. I don't believe people go into space. You know what I mean? That seems all fake. Cause check this out. Did you know how much Freemasonry and Satanism there is at NASA? Did you ever hear about that stuff? That's part of it.
No, tell me about.
Okay. So for example, they're all Freemasons, or almost all the astronauts are Freemasons. Okay, that's the first thing that's weird. Then
How do you know that?
Well, they're card-carrying Masons. They admit it, like Buzz Aldrin, for instance, that guy. You know that guy, right? But he was the man on the moon. Yeah. So he's like most of those astronauts are known. They admit it. And then there's other stuff like that too. Like there's this guy, Jack Parsons. Okay, he was one of the major rocket scientists when they were starting out with it, and he was like. He's a full-on Satan worshiper. He used to be an acolyte of Aleister Crowley. He used to hang out with L. Ron Hubbard, who's the founder of Scientology.
Yeah.
The two of them were doing this thing called the Babylon Rising ritual, and ever since then, everything got weird. The UFO sightings, the NASA thing. And then Hubbard started Scientology. So it's those, I don't know. It's all those weird connections with that thing. There's this guy Werner von Braun, who was a Nazi rocket scientist. He got brought into NASA after the war with this thing called, I don't know if you ever heard of Operation Paperclip.
Yeah.
This thing where they brought in the Nazi scientists and stuff. Yeah. So he was one of those guys. So it's a lot of like dark things like that behind NASA, and that's where you start kind of asking questions about it. If you look into, there's a lot of English people that have looked into like the moon landing and how fake it is. I remember there was this thing from the Royal Academy of Science that they had this documentary about why all the photographs from the moon landing are fake, But it's hard to find now. I can't find it anymore. A lot of that stuff got taken down off of YouTube, But anyway, what do you think about the moon landing thing?
I think it. I disagree with you.
Yeah, of course.
And okay. Yeah. I mean, it's courteous, to be honest. I don't see why they would lie. Obviously, you would see they lie because you fundamentally disagree with that. Science.
Well, I don't disagree with science, but I'll say
I know you don't.
There's science that we can. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I didn't say science. I said that science.
Oh yeah, that science, yeah. So so let's talk about why I think that science is different than some other science. There's science that we can perform an experiment on,
Yeah.
Like chemistry, simple physics. But then when we get to stuff like gravity, you can't perform an experiment on gravity. You know, you can't test that gravity exists. You know, and that's the thing. People don't really get it, but yeah, that's it. It seems like it, right? It seems like it. That's what people say. That's what people say.
Just need to get that glue.
Everyone does that, but let me stop you. Let me stop you there for a second because gravity, we already know that objects fall. Objects fall toward the Earth, right? And also we know that the stars move around. The stars and the planets, so-called planets, move around. So that's what gravity is meant to explain. That's a theory. The theory of gravity is meant to explain those phenomena, right?
Right.
But then you can't use those phenomena to prove the theory of gravity. That doesn't, right? It's just the theory is trying to explain those things. We already know those things happen. You know what I mean? So what they try to do is say, okay, gravity, if it works, it predicts these things will happen in the stars, and also when we drop things, everything will fall at the same rate.
Yeah.
So that's how they say, okay, gravity predicts this. Gravity works. That was Newtonian gravity. But then as they got better at looking at the stars, they found that, you know, things weren't lining up. It wasn't, his predictions weren't working anymore. You understand?
Yeah.
Sorry, getting distracted over there?
No, just need to keep my eyes on something.
Okay. And so some things are happening in the sky that's not, his theory doesn't predict those things. So then they said, okay, we'll figure it out. Don't worry, just we'll figure it out. But things kept piling on, more and more things. And finally, there was an experiment called the Michelson-Morley experiment. They tried to test what they call ether drift, which is like the motion of the Earth kind of thing. They're basically, they would have... But what they found is that they got a null result. So basically the Earth, according to their test, it would seem like the Earth wasn't moving. And so it was very strange, right? So they didn't know how to explain it. That was when Einstein came out with relativity. The idea was that, okay, if light, because they're using light for the Michelson-Morley experiment. So anyway, they go from Newtonian gravity has failed now, okay? So then they go to Einsteinian gravity. And then Einsteinian gravity, when that kind of fails, that fails too all the time. But they'll just sort of add on things, like black holes. Or now they have this thing called dark matter. They try to say that 90% of the universe is made up of dark matter. Because if it isn't, then that means the universe would be expanding much faster than it is, you know, according to their model. So they had to come up with this invisible, undetectable matter that's everywhere in the universe called dark matter that's providing just enough gravity so that the universe doesn't expand as fast as they expect it would. You understand?
Yeah.
So it's all kind of ad hoc. It's ad hoc, you know, like, oh, the Earth appears to not be moving, so what are we gonna do? Okay, they came up with Einstein, relative time, and it's like, it's very ad hoc and it doesn't make any sense. And again, there's no way to test it. So what do you think about all that?
I think that's exactly what you'd expect from people trying to figure it out. You know, coming from a position of ignorance, you make guesses and you find out the guess works, and then it doesn't. So you either throw that guess away or add an explanation on. So
but there would be more logical to say, okay, so for example, let's say we find that we run a test and we find the Earth isn't moving. So it would be more logical to say, okay, maybe the Earth isn't moving. Let's look at that. Let's think about that. What is that? How could we make that work? Instead, what they do is they say, okay, let's just say time is relative. And that way we don't have to think about that and we could just continue with our previous theory. It's convenient. It's not logical. It's not a logical way of thinking of it. That's why it's called ad hoc. It's like, it's a fallacy, you know what I mean? But they did it. Anyway, people don't think about it too much. It's kind of complicated, but
it is. It's incredibly interesting. Obviously, I've got to say I don't agree with you, but at the same time, that doesn't mean I don't respect you.
No, I know.
No.
That's fine. That's fine. You don't have to agree with me. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But think about it. I just want you to think about it. Like now you're thinking about it. You might go look it up, or I'll send you some stuff online or whatever. So it's just like
What
get
about
these
the
things
seasons?
going in your head.
How would the seasons work if the Earth didn't move?
Oh well, that basically the idea is that okay, so the Earth is flat, and then the sun is moving around in a circle overhead. Okay, and then the seasons come because the sun the circle. It's not a perfect circle. It sort of moves in and out over the course of the year, and then also it's up and down a little bit. So that's why the heat from it changes. And you understand?
What's the fundamental reason why you believe flat Earth, or why did you get into flat Earth?
Well, you start to think about. Well, okay, it all started. For me, it all started with 9/11, man.
Right.
9/11 was the canary in the coal mine, you could say, right? And then after that, it was JFK, and then JFK is kind of like okay, that means like if they could just kill the leader of the free world and just act like nothing happens, then democracy's a joke, and even the world governments, we can't trust any of it. And then when I got to the moon landing seems to be pretty fake too. So at that point, you have to wonder how could they fake the moon landing if Russia and those countries weren't involved a little bit too. So then it's like a world government, right? But then you think about there is theories already about those things, like the Freemasons and the Illuminati and stuff. And then there's stuff with that too. There is a lot of evidence for that too. That's kind of weird and gross. So I don't really want to
No.
get into that too much yet. But if we have to go there, we could go there. But I mean, with the flat Earth, it's like this. It's like I was saying. Every human being, although we've been taught this from a young age that the Earth is spinning and the Earth is round. But everywhere we look, it's completely flat. No, our experience, our human experience has been a flat, motionless Earth. The idea that it's spinning, the idea that it's round, that's just a story we've been told, That's the thing.
How do you falsify your theory?
That's the thing too. We can't falsify the round Earth theory either. That's the thing about it too. So they're both kind of almost religious. But this is the thing. The reason why the flat Earth theory is possibly better, neither is falsifiable. So you just have to look for a kind of model. The model is not falsifiable, but which model explains the data better, right? And so
I think you could falsify it if you found the edge.
Oh yeah, well that wouldn't falsify it. That would make it. That would kind of prove it, right?
Yeah,
that would add the evidence. If somebody went into space, if somebody goes into, that's the thing. So people have gone into space and they've taken pictures, and that should falsify flat Earth, right? But the problem is, unlike in experiments, where falsifiability, that whole concept, it comes from the idea that we can run experiments on things, and observable, repeatable experiments, right? But the thing about taking a picture of the Earth from space is it's not really repeatable by anybody else. It's only these government agents like NASA people and those people. And then now it's like SpaceX, but I think they're basically fake too. And they seem to be like agents too, you know what I mean? So that's why.
What about people who say they've gone round the world, like Magdalene?
Yeah, so what they do is they just kind of go around in a circle on the Earth. But what happens is because so the North Pole is in the middle. You know what I mean? So when let's say you have a compass, and north is always on this way. So when you're going around, you're just going around a circle. It appears that you're going in a straight line, but you're just in a circle, So that's how it works.
Would that work like that?
I know, it's so crazy, right?
That's interesting. That's a really interesting one. I like that one. I mean, for me, it's the shadow of the Earth on the moon.
Right. So the theory about that is that the moon the moon isn't what we think it is, right? It's not. It's this. We most flat earthers would say the moon is actually generating its own light. It's
Okay.
not a reflection of the sun, right? And so that shadow that we think of as a eclipse is just some other phenomenon. We don't know exactly what causes it, but it's not a shadow. That's the idea. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But we don't know what it is. So that's the weird part. But there are some things like sometimes you'll see the sun and the moon in the sky at the same time, and it's like, how could that even reflect, and how could that work? You know? So there's some things that I mean I don't know too much about that part of it. But you know what's interesting about flat Earth now?
Go on.
Now that people have these long range cameras, it's relatively cheap now. You could buy one of those Nikon 900s for relatively cheap, right? So there's like hundreds and thousands of people all around the world that are taking these long range photos of things that should be behind a curve. If we according to the dimensions of the round Earth, they should be behind the curve. So they'll find something like a lighthouse, and it's like, okay, this lighthouse is this high and it's 10 miles away, so it should be behind the curve, but we can see it, and it's perfectly. You can see the whole thing, not like no part of it is hidden. You know what I mean?
What about the Exorcists in the Falklands War, where they shot the Exorcists from underneath the curve of the Earth?
Oh, I never heard about that. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
So they were saying that?
So HMS Coventry was
Okay.
hit by Exorcists. The Exorcist jets hid behind the curve of the Earth, launched their missiles, which then went around the curve and hit the ship.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to look into that story.
You'd have to look
but
into
it sounds
that.
like
Yeah,
there's probably something interesting there. Maybe I don't know. I don't know too much about it. But it sounds like another story. It's just another story. You know what I mean? I want to see something again. I want to see something repeatable. You know?
Yeah. You want to see evidence on your own ground, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, and I think that's a healthy attitude to have.
Right.
That you question things.
Because look, when they say, oh, you know how we know the Earth is round because we sent an astronaut into space. That's not a scientific claim. That's a historical claim. They're telling you a story that some guy went into space and, hey, maybe that happened. I don't really know. You know what I mean? It's different than science, which should be observable and repeatable. But all the observable, repeatable thing.
Space launch.
I've seen those, yeah, but if you look at them, you know what happens? They go up, and then they kind of curve off. If you've ever looked at those things, they always curve off. They never go straight up all the way. They curve off, and then you don't see them. They go off into the distance, and it's like, where did he go? You know. But you know what's interesting too? I don't know. This is kind of. I hope I'm not gonna offend you with this one, but it's a. I mean, I can show you. It's so, or you can Google it. But do you remember there was a Challenger? There was a Challenger the shuttle that exploded.
Yeah, I remember Challenger. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a bunch of the people, the crew of that ship. Like there's people alive today with those exact names, who look exactly the same as those people, who just have normal lives and careers. You understand what I'm saying? Like there'll be like a woman. There's this great meme with all their pictures, and you can see all the new pictures of them, right? But it's like they're all still alive, is what I'm trying to say to you. You know what I mean? And they're just living normal lives.
That's a very big claim. That's a very big claim to make.
I know, but this is the thing. Again, you can Google this. Look, you know what? Let me try to find it, and I'll try to bring it up here. But so the whole Challenger crew. I know that sounds crazy, right? I know, and I don't want to. It's kind of like people get offended too because it's weird. But okay, let's take a look at this.
The idea that people have their deaths have been faked.
Yeah.
That's
That's pretty wild, right? Okay, but let's just take a look at this one. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Well, it's on Snopes, so Snopes is gonna explain it away. So, this is pretty safe. We're not going into any kind of.
No.
But let's see. Where's the picture? Okay, so this is the picture. So Snopes is trying to explain it away right now. But you see, some of them don't. But see, let's take this guy. See this guy right here? He's got the same name. He hasn't even changed his name, And it's the same guy, man. Or these two guys. This one guy. Sorry?
I get it. It's just not a very good, if we're expecting these people to be able to hide the curvature of the earth, surely there's no to change your name. And it,
Well, this is the thing. See, this is the thing. See, it's like, that's kind of part of the trick, Part of the trick is to hide in plain sight. And this is part of their, this is, okay, now we're getting into like the whole occult Freemason thing, right? But the idea that it's hidden in plain sight. Okay? And because no one looks into it. No one wants to check it out. Everyone's like, no, you're crazy, and then they go on with their life, Or this woman here, she literally didn't even change her name, man. She's a professor at Columbia University. And she never even changed her name. But okay, I'll give you another example. Hidden in plain sight. Hidden in plain sight, okay? There's a giant pentagram in the streets of Washington, D.C. Look at that. The streets of Washington, D.C. have a pentagram, okay? And it's pointed at the White House. The point of it is right at the White House. I'm serious, man. That's how crazy it is. And there's other things, too. It's not even just the pentagram. There's like an owl. You know the owl of Molech?
Yeah.
So there's an owl, dude, in the streets of Washington, D.C., okay? That's the kind of thing. That's why conspiracy theorists are like, no, this is real. This is happening.
That's pretty nutty. And
that's pretty nuts, right?
Yeah, it's just I despair. I mean, the thing is, it looks absolutely. Go on, let's see the owl.
I want to see the owl. Oh, there it is. Sorry. I hope you can see it more better. If I get. Where's this picture, man? Did you see? I don't know. I can't even find it. Sorry. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah, I can see it, yeah.
Okay. It's hard to see very well here, very clearly. Maybe I'll check another one.
See, the thing is, if you were really doing a conspiracy, you would not hide in plain sight. You would just hide. Oh
no, that's what you think. But this is the thing. It's kind of like it's because this is something from the devil. It's not from humans trying to hide their crimes. See, that's the owl. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Anyway, so the idea is like they want the people to have all the necessary information to know. And then when the people just say, "Oh, no, I don't believe that. I'm going back to my life. I'm gonna watch some sports on TV and drink a beer," right? That's when they become like complicit. That's the idea of it, anyway. They call it a revelation of the method. But you know about this one? They all go to this like place in It's called Bohemian Grove, this place in California, and they just like do this ritual. All these elites, and they just go and they supposedly burn like a child, like an effigy of a child in the fire, and it's sort of like a sacrifice thing.
See, the thing is, if you know this, everyone knows this.
Oh yeah, everyone knows it. But nobody cares. That's the thing. Everyone, they're like you. They're like, I don't believe that. And then, You know what I mean?
Let's
And
just make
most
that
people don't really hear about it.
I don't believe this, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's. I mean, that pentagram, that was hilarious.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's crazy. And this goes on and on, man. Like I remember I was showing my friends. I was talking because another guy from England, he's from England too.
What do your friends think of this?
Most of them think it's crazy too. Yeah,
Yeah.
they stop. Like half of them, they're just like, "Man, you're too into that stuff." They don't even talk to me anymore. Half of them, you know what I mean? They're just like, "Nah, it's too crazy. I don't want to think about it, Mike." You know. But it's okay. I mean, to me, because then it gets into this thing. Like I was gonna ask you about COVID and stuff. Like, well, what do you think about the COVID regime and the worldwide tyranny that took place over that? Or do you think that's just a medical necessity that we should?
I think it was a medical necessity. I think there was a certain degree of terror because they didn't really know what was going to happen. Because we are due a nasty pandemic. The last one was 1918. You know, that was a pretty nasty. That was a really nasty one. You know, we are due a really nasty one. We've dodged a bullet with COVID. You know, it's 2% fatality rate is really quite lucky. So yeah, I do believe it was completely justified. Okay. Not just.
So what do you think about things like? I'll give you an example. It seems like most of the jurisdictions in Western countries, they seem to be sort of inflating the death rates. If I don't know how to put it in a more diplomatic way, but like where I live in Ontario, the literal rule, the law of the land here is that if you
you're Canadian, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, so in here in my where I live, they have a rule that if you have a COVID test, a positive COVID test, and you die, it's a COVID death. Doesn't matter what the cause of death actually was. And so that's the kind of thing which pushes up the number. So then you get your 2% figure, but it's actually really much lower than that. And
it is really much lower than that. Also, it's people who got underlying conditions,
right? That whole thing, and
vulnerable
people, and yeah.
The reason why we did the lockdowns in the UK was to shield the incredibly vulnerable from infection, because.
But that didn't work. I mean, did it just not work, or was that all part of the plan? Like to just pile them into the old folks' homes, and I mean, because in every Western country, it was horrible. It was horrible, man. I mean, it's like murder, you know. I mean, it's like
going to come out in the inquests, you know. I tell you what, we live in Britain. We live in a quite an open democracy. You know, we get the figures, and we know that anyone who dies with COVID is regarded as a COVID death, even if it didn't kill them.
Right.
You know, if you fall off a roof and you're found to have had COVID, that's counted as a COVID death. You know, that's, you know, we know that's scandalous and a ridiculous thing.
Sorry, I'm gonna keep talking. I can hear you, but that doesn't make any sense, man.
It's scandalous.
It's weird. It's weird.
The only justification is you've got to have a definition, and that's the definition they came up with. Next time, you know, we've probably learned a lot from this. We've learned a lot from the last 2 years of how to deal with the next pandemic, because you know there will be another one. Also, we're not out of this one yet.
Nah, well, supposedly. I mean, again, that's another one. I mean, that's another conspiracy. Like, okay, you know, it's funny. I don't want to talk about it because I talked about it on another podcast, and they took it down. YouTube took it down, you know. But my opinion about COVID, you know, I can't even say my opinion about COVID. That's funny, right? I mean, I talked about stuff on this show, like conspiracy stuff that I mean, I don't want to like stuff that probably would really freak you out, but this COVID thing is the only thing they took down, man. You know?
Is it?
I won't let you talk about it. Yeah. And they said, oh, it's a medical medical misinformation or whatever. But everything I'm saying, I don't just make it up. I can show you in the books. There's a paper that they publish when they discover a new virus or whatever, they publish a paper about it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So when they discovered SARS-CoV-2, they published a paper and I read it. And it's just, that's when you realize that it's kind of, the whole thing is kind of a scam. But then, okay, let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of this idea that there are cures for many of our modern ailments, that Big Pharma kind of covers them up or suppresses the research?
I've never heard that.
Okay. But you know that, for example, they only will research remedies that are patentable.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Otherwise, they can't make money. So that's a big thing too, right? So the natural cures are sort of getting pushed aside because unless these big drug companies fund the research, they can't do it. No one can afford to research these things, you know?
That's pretty obvious, that it's all being driven by commercial viability.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we need, well, no, I've never thought of this actually. This isn't something that I thought about. I've seen the film, is it The Constant Gardener? In that,
I heard of it. I don't know too much about it though.
It talks about ethics of drug companies.
Right.
I think it's The Constant Gardener. I'm not 100% sure. But these, if there's money driving it, then it isn't going to be done for the public good. It's going to be done for commercial viability.
Yeah.
And I'd be really sorry if it was a case that natural cures were being neglected, non-patentable.
Oh yeah, they are, man. Yeah. They are. 100% they are. I mean, look, my friend got cancer, took this thing. There's this thing here, a Canadian guy. You're gonna laugh. He makes this thing out of cannabis. He makes this oil. I know it sounds funny, right? But if you look at the science of cannabinoids and cancer, the anti-cancer properties of this thing are incredible. And this is scientific. But this guy, because the testing is gonna take decades, and we don't know, right? But this guy was making it himself, and he was using it. He used it on his own cancer. He used it on some friends, and it worked. And there's tons of stuff online about it. The guy's name is Rick Simpson, and if you look up this thing, Rick Simpson oil, you can find out about it. But anyway, if you or anybody you know gets cancer, I would highly suggest you try this before you try chemo or whatever. Because my friend took this thing, complete remission, and it's not like, and there's tons of people online talking about it. But again, it's covered up. You won't hear about it in the media, He got arrested. He had to flee Canada. He lives in Europe somewhere now.
He's your friend?
Not my friend. No, the guy Rick Simpson. Sorry, my friend is okay though. But yeah, my friend just took this thing and he's fine now. Okay, but the Rick Simpson guy who was making this stuff, yeah, he had to flee to Europe and he's hiding out there or something.
In Europe?
Somewhere on the continent. I don't think it's in the UK.
No. I think it's important to say, if you do have cancer, to get medical support.
Sure. But then a lot of people do. I mean, it is like, it's so. I mean, the chemo and everything is so radical. It's so poisonous that a lot of people. It's not a ridiculous thing to just say, I don't want to take chemo, because the chemo is so deadly itself, right? Yeah.
That's the point, because it kills off the cancer, which is weaker than the body.
Yeah, supposedly.
Some
people do die. Some people do die from the chemo,
They do.
A lot of people do. Yeah, yeah. It's so bad. Oh, you know about that. Yeah, it's so bad, man.
But, yeah, hopefully, if you're in that situation, which, I'm sure people who have been, it doesn't get to that.
Yeah. I
know. Cool. Right, so what else should we talk about?
I don't know. Okay, so
you've done an hour of conspiracy theories.
Okay. So all right, that's a good hour. All right.
Yeah.
So okay. Well, okay, we got through. Well, okay. How's things in England with the COVID regulations right now? Anyway,
It's all gone.
everything's gone.
Yeah, it's all gone.
So no masks, no.
No masks.
What about when you go into the shops? Do you have to show your QR code and all those things?
No, that's all
Nothing.
gone.
Everything's
all
gone.
gone.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah,
We're not even there yet. We're still going through all this stuff. I don't know.
What are you going through?
A little bit, not as much. I mean, they just recently dropped the mask thing.
Yeah.
And most of the shops though, you still have to have the QR code, as far as I know. I don't know.
You have to show a QR code.
Yeah, like some of the restaurants and stuff, but then a lot of them are dropping it now too. You're right. So most of the places probably dropping it now. I don't go out too much anymore because I'm an unvaxxed, disgusting disease carrier, right? So I don't even leave my home anymore. It's so weird. The only time I go out to like go for a jog and I'll just come home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so bad, man.
No, we everything comes to an end on April the 1st. Everything.
Oh, nice.
But we haven't had masks for a month or so. The restrictions on you having to self-isolate, that's gone. You know, all the legal requirements, they've all timed out and been repealed. So that's been quite good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, man. You know, I'm glad to hear that. But you know what's funny about the whole COVID thing is that, and this is why I think it's a conspiracy too, right? Because first of all, there were all these like models. I think in England, I forget the name of the anyway, it was the Imperial College, I think, or something like that in England, that they were coming up with these models, and they're projecting all these deaths and all these things, but it was much higher than
it was.
Than
the
really
models
happened.
were wrong.
All wrong. So they panicked. They panicked over something, you know. And then it was worldwide. It was every country in the world. That's what doesn't seem realistic to me, to say that this is just they freaked out about a virus. It seems like this is part of a plan, you know. But what do you think? You know what was interesting too? All those places with the models are funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they're these like big time vaccine proponents, and this guy's fully invested in all these vaccine companies that made a mint. But anyway, what do you think?
I think we live in an interconnected world where we all share information, and nobody wanted to be the nation where everybody died. So,
yeah, I
know. Ultimately, the reason why we did the lockdown was not because of the deaths, but because of the threat to the NHS being overwhelmed by the number of patients. We didn't want to end up like Italy. Remember Italy? You know, with patients on the floor, that kind of thing. You know, that's why we did the lockdown. That was the essential thing. But the models were wrong. They used flu as opposed to the particular COVID. I think it probably informed thinking. But what was good was Boris Johnson taking the political decision as opposed to a medical decision, you know, and going for closing down the lockdown regulations as soon as possible.
Right.
So ultimately, having politicians in charge as opposed to medics in charge was the good thing, even though that.
Yeah,
that's
ironic. It should be. Ironically, right? Well, that's how it should be still. I mean, but the thing is, the politicians, they took too many cues from the doctors, I think, in this one. They're just too panicked over it. But okay, fair enough. You're okay with it.
It's the case that nobody wants to be the nation where everybody dies. And we are looking out for that next pandemic, you know, the really big one. Probably a bird flu.
Nah, man. I don't even... It's funny, you know. Actually, all the research that I've been doing, and there's other people looking at this stuff, but I actually wonder if any of these pandemics are that realistic. You know.
Well,
I was looking at this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just going, well.
Well, okay. I was looking at this. I don't know what to talk about because I'm scared to get cut off if I talk about that thing I was gonna say to you before about COVID. But it's like I mean people are questioning virology itself now at this point. That's how bad it was. Like when I told you I read that paper, the paper's so ridiculous. It's like, but then all the virologists are like, oh yeah, oh that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So then you have to think if they all think it's okay, it's kind of like the space science thing, like bunch of monkeys that just don't even know anything. They just get trained. They get trained to do a job. Okay, my job is to look at this computer screen and get numbers off of it and then do calculations. That's all they know how to do. They don't know how to think about, is that even realistic that there's black holes and all this thing? They never think about that, you know? And it's the same thing with these viruses. They don't really look at the science of it properly. They just kind of do their job, you know? Does that make any sense?
I think it makes sense. I don't think I agree with it because obviously the science is what they're doing. And I think they are.
All right, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think they're the professionals who do it. I mean... What didn't make sense about the article to you?
All right, there's a few things. But the big thing was this, that they I hope they don't take this one down, man. But anyway, if they do, I'll cut it right here. I'll cut it and then I'll just put it back up, okay? Cuz I don't want to waste it.
We'll have to do another one.
Yeah, for sure. I'll have you on again, brother. But
I must admit,
anyway.
I don't feel like I've been robust enough. I hope it's been okay for you today.
No, it's great, man. This is awesome. I like to bounce ideas off you because you don't know too much about this stuff. So it's good to hear your thoughts on it when you hear about these things. Okay, what do you think? But okay, so with this paper, there's many problems with it. Many problems. I won't get into all the details, but one thing that's important that I think anyone can appreciate is when you run an experiment, I'm sure you're aware, you need to have a sample and a control. So you'll have let's say you're doing an experiment on
paracetamol.
Okay. Yeah, you want to check whether paracetamol will cure your headache or whatever it is, right? So you get 1,000 people that they're going to take the actual thing, paracetamol, and another 1,000 they're going to get what do they call it? Placebo.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So there's the sample and the control group, and then you compare them. Every other condition is the same, but that's the only difference. And so that's how you can know that the thing either worked or didn't work. It's like whatever difference you see in the two groups, you're gonna ascribe it to the paracetamol. If they say, "Oh, this group says that they had less headaches," then that means it was because the thing worked, right? But with this paper, they didn't do that. They didn't have a control group. Imagine that. And they're doing it. They're not doing it with. They're doing it with cell cultures, right? They're taking this supposed virus, right, and they're inoculating the cell cultures with the virus. But you would need to have another group of cell cultures that you're not inoculating, which are kept under the same conditions, and then you would say, okay, whatever difference appears between these two groups, then you're going to ascribe that to the virus.
Well, that sounds like a very bad article, actually.
Yeah. It's a world famous article. All the virologists have read it, you know, but they don't see a problem because they don't use a sample and a control. They don't do it. Actually, if you read any of their papers, and that's why it may be that the whole field of virology is pseudoscience. And it sounds weird to someone like you, but for me, it's like, okay, I could buy that because space science seems to be fake too, and you know what I mean. I see a lot of this stuff as fake, but that's just that's just right in the paper. You can read it. It's kind of high technical language. It took me a while kind of parse all that stuff. But if you're an educated man, I'm sure it'll take you a while to figure out all the language and stuff. But you can read it. I could email it to you.
Yeah, email that over. Maybe put a link in the on the
Facebook message.
Yeah, in the Facebook message.
I will.
Yeah, that'd be
No
great.
problem. No problem. Yeah, check it out, man. And then if you have any questions, I can try to help you out, or if you know anyone who's a biologist, biology trained. But I've asked my friends, I've asked my cousin's a doctor in England, and she's
really?
just like, yeah. But then she's and this is why the conspiracy works, man. I'll tell you, because I told her the thing of why it's fake or why I think it's fake, and then she's just like, like I have to make a living. You know what I'm saying? That's what people say. Man. My doctor, I didn't even bother trying to talk to the guy. He's just like, he doesn't even get it. It's so ridiculous. The guy's like telling me to take the vaccine. He's like, oh well, look at the numbers, Mike. Like statistically, you can see it's much safer to take the vaccine than to not take it. But I'm like, well, don't you know how they've inflated the death rates and all that stuff? Even you know that, right? But you're not a doctor. You know that. But he doesn't know that, or they just ignore it, or they just don't want to think about it, Because if you're a doctor and you think about that, then you have to kind of reevaluate your whole career, and maybe you should probably quit your job and change to be something else, That's why they don't even want to think about it, man. So that's what happens. That's why these conspiracies stay alive, and
Yeah. It's they stay alive because there's questions. And I admire you for your questions, but I don't agree with you. You know I don't.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to go now.
Oh, okay. So but I'll send you that. I'll send you that that article. All right. So check it out. Let me know, and then yeah. So come on, maybe in a few months or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I've really enjoyed it.
Think about it again. All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot for coming on, my friend.
My pleasure.
And thanks for watching the Toronto Bible Study Podcast. This has been our guest, Dominic from the UK, Dominic Russell. And signing off. Bye for now. God bless. Oh, wait. Sorry, wait. I gotta hit this one.